What's happening, y'all? Welcome inside the Fantasy Stock Exchange. Bush coming at you a little sick, but solo today to break down everything that matters from the 2023 NFL Scouting Combine that will be beginning this weekend. Going to go position by position and break down what we need to be looking for as Dynasty Fantasy Football managers, especially those of you guys that have a ton of draft capital. I'm sure you're very interested in seeing how the class tests and plays out. So, this is the beginning of rookie hype season. You guys know this is when your rookie picks start to accumulate value and you can get, Godfather offers for the 101, the 102, etc. So definitely this is an important time of the fantasy football calendar. If you guys enjoyed this video at any point, you know what to do. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Now let's hit the intro. All right, so the NFL Scouting Combine is available to be watched on NFL Network. You guys should be able to see the schedule on the screen right now. Most of the defensive players are going today and tomorrow. Today is Thursday as I record this. We have D linemen and linebackers getting weigh-ins right now as I'm recording, and DBs are going to be going tomorrow. So the first day that we actually need to start paying attention, if you guys are just a fantasy player and you don't really care about the NFL draft, is Saturday morning, probably. Saturday around 1 p.m. Eastern is when the actual testing will begin for the quarterbacks, wide receivers, and tight ends. And then on Sunday, we will see at 1 p.m. the running backs and offensive line go. But we will see tomorrow on Friday, we're going to see some media interviews from the quarterbacks, wide receivers, and tight ends. Measurements and stuff will be Saturday morning, and same goes for Sunday morning for the running back position. So that's basically how you can watch. Weigh-ins will likely happen, like I said, earlier in the day than 1 p.m. They'll probably happen at like 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, but the testing and drills begin at 1 p.m. So I'm not going to go chronologically, quarterbacks, wide receivers, tight ends, and then running backs, how they're going to test. I'm actually going to go with running backs first, just because this is a position that I have graded pretty much everybody in the class. So I kind of know how these players are expected to test. So I'm very excited to see how the running back position looks in Indianapolis. So I'm going to start here, even though chronologically they won't actually start testing until Sunday. So we do actually have some news about who's testing and who isn't. I'll try and go over that for each position group. Zach Evans from Ole Miss won't be testing until his pro day, which is on March 29th, if you want to make note of that, due to a hamstring issue, nor will his former TCU teammate, Kendre Miller, be testing. Sounds like he might not test at his pro day either. He's dealing with an injury right now. So we might be going in blind with Kendre Miller and not know anything about his testing or his official weights or anything like that. He'll probably weigh in at his pro day, but we won't really know anything until his pro day, if he's going to test or not. So he's definitely a question mark. And then UAB running back Dwayne McBride, who Mel Kiper actually has as a top 3 running back in this class, won't test until his pro day either on March 22nd due to a hamstring injury. So those 3 guys, we won't get testing numbers on. As of now, those are the only 3 backs I know of. If you guys know of any more, leave them down below in the comments that are not testing or not doing specific parts of drills. Bijan Robinson, of course, is the crown jewel of the running back class this year. If I were Bijan Robinson, I wouldn't do a damn thing in Indianapolis because the whole NFL knows I'm the best running back in the class. They know I'm a top 5 to 10 player in the class and the best, first round running back prospect we've seen since Saquon Barkley. But I think he's going to test, and I think he's probably going to be pretty freaky. Curious to know what his actual true speed is, because there's a couple times on tape where you'll see him get caught from behind. So I'm not expecting a 4.3 out of Bijan Robinson, but I am expecting somewhere in the 4.4s would be perfect for him. So hopefully he's that 215, 220-pound back that he's listed at, and he can run a 4.4. If he's able to do that, I'm sure he's going to jump like a freak, bench like a freak, agility test like a freak. So Bijan Robinson definitely going to solidify his RB1 status in Indianapolis. Jahmyr Gibbs, if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. Good Lord, Jahmyr Gibbs, please do not be 195 pounds. Just crack 200 pounds, maybe 205 if I'm dreaming, or even heavier if I'm really dreaming. He also needs to run fast too for Jahmyr Gibbs, because on film, when you watch him, he wins a lot with speed. So if he's not actually fast and he runs a 4.48 or something like that, which is still fast, but not as fast as he looks on film, that might be a problem as opposed to the 4.39 that he's probably going to run. So Jahmyr Gibbs, come in above 200 pounds and be fast. And then everything else is just gravy. You can jump, you can be agile, all that good stuff. The rest of this running back class, though, behind Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs, kind of needs to sort itself out right now, right? Because we have Zach Charbonnet, who's in my rankings the RB3 right now. For him, I expect weigh-ins and interviews to go well because, he's big and he's a senior prospect, so he'll probably be more mature. I'm curious to know how fast he is and how athletic he is in general, because his tape is quite good. Honestly, his grade is very close to Jahmyr Gibbs, who I have as my RB2 in the class right now. So Zach Charbonnet comes in, he runs like a 4.51 at 225 pounds. He's definitely going to be a big time riser in the eyes of the NFL and probably be a solidified day 2 pick, maybe even a second rounder or a top 50 guy. So there's many backs in this class that are solid and are going to be top 3 round rookie picks. So I'm just going to kind of group some guys together here because I don't really want to spend, all day talking about individual guys. So there's a couple backs in this class that have size concerns. And I already kind of talked about Jahmyr Gibbs as one of them, but the other guys mainly are Devon Achane, running back from Texas A&M, Deuce Vaughn, running back from Kansas State, and ECU's Keaton Mitchell. Those are the other 3 guys I think majorly with weight concerns. I'm also curious if Tulane's Tajay Spears is any smaller at the combine than he was at the Senior Bowl, because at the Senior Bowl he was 204 pounds. If he goes to the combine and weighs 199 so that he can run faster, to me that impacts his fantasy ceiling a little bit, because 199-pound running back, because they probably played sub 200 pounds, is definitely less appealing than a 204-pound running back. Same goes for Illinois' Chase Brown, who weighed 215 at the Senior Bowl in Alabama. If he comes in, he's 205 pounds at the combine, so he can run fast. That's also a concern as well. Mainly, we just want to see Devon Achane crack 185, 190 pounds. Deuce Vaughn, I mean, I don't know how small the guy's going to be, but he might be 175, 180 pounds. Hopefully he's bigger than that. And then Keaton Mitchell is also listed around 185, 190 pounds as well. So we'll have to see how big those guys are. Then we have some guys with some speed concerns at the running back position. Dwayne McBride and Kendre Miller would definitely be 2 of them, but neither of those guys are testing. Of course, we'll get numbers on McBride's 40 time at his pro day. Like I said, Zach Charbonnet definitely has some speed concerns for some people. Tank Bigsby from Auburn definitely has some speed concerns. Chase Brown from Illinois, Roshan Johnson from Texas, and Eric Gray from Oklahoma. For me, those were the guys that I have listed as weaknesses, speed concerns, home run type of ability. If these guys can crack low to mid 4.5s, I think that would be a win. If any of them run like 4.66 or something like that, that would definitely be a loss for them. And then we're probably going to have some big risers from the NFL scouting combine at the running back position, because some of these guys are great athletes. And I think, unfortunately for Zach Evans, he probably would have been one of them, because I think he's probably pound for pound one of the best running back athletes in this class. But Sean Tucker is probably the guy that's going to be a huge beneficiary here, because he was a track star in high school. He has good size. There hasn't been many round 3 mock drafts that I've seen with Sean Tucker in them. But if he runs, 4.39 or 4.42 or something at the size that he is, it would definitely be huge for his draft stock. The Dynasty community, of course, is already well aware of Sean Tucker, but it looks like the NFL is not. So if he runs fast, weighs in good, interviews well, all that good stuff, then he could be a riser for NFL teams. And that's really the big concern we have with Sean Tucker right now, is what is his draft capital going to end up being? If he can go from a projected 5th round pick to a projected 3rd round pick with a good 40 time, good size, good athletic testing, then that would definitely be huge for his running back prospects in rookie drafts. So, and also huge for you guys if you have late 1s, early 2s, and are in need of running back prospects on your team. Devon Achane obviously will be a big riser of the combine. To me, I don't think he should be, because we already know he's fast. He ran, like a 10.1 in high school. He's a track star. He's got world-class speed, but he's probably going to run in the 4.2s. And he actually has a chance to break John Ross's record as well. But I also think the inverse side of Devon Achane could be true as well, where he could be a big faller in the combine. If he comes in 182 pounds and runs only a 4.35, which is still very fast, but I'm telling you, people will not be satisfied unless this guy runs in the 4.2s, then Devon Achane could slide down boards. I personally think he's a little bit overrated, and I don't think he's, brings much to the table aside from being a solid receiver and very fast. I want to see how good of an athlete he is, agility-wise, explosiveness drills-wise, because I do think I have some concerns there for Devon Achane. I want to see him do things well other than run fast in a straight line. So most importantly on this running back class, and then I'll kind of get into the next position group, is I want insight on draft capital, because this running back class is one of the strongest positions in the draft, according to, Kuiper and McShay and Daniel Jeremiah and all this stuff. This class isn't very good overall among all position groups. So this is a strong class of running backs, but a weak class of, other positions, DNs, whatever, wide receivers, offensive linemen. Even though most of these running backs are round 3 to round 4, ish running back prospects, the lack of talent in this draft at other positions may see more of them go in the top 100, which is what we need as fantasy players to check the box from the draft capital perspective. So I'm very interested to hear, when we get into interviews, oh, NFL teams are talking about Sean Tucker as a day 2 pick. NFL teams are talking about Zach Evans as a day 2 pick. NFL teams are talking about Tank Bigsby as a day 2 pick. If we don't hear things like that, I will be a little concerned about the running back class in general, because we've seen the draft capital bump from the Senior Bowl for guys like Roshan Johnson and Tajay Spears, but we haven't really seen that for the underclassmen yet. So I'm definitely curious to see that at the NFL Combine. Quarterback position, this one will be pretty brief. Bryce Young, it's Weightgate. Everybody, this is probably the biggest piece of news that is going to drop at the scouting combine, and that'll happen probably Saturday morning. It'll be blowing up the Twitter timelines. Is how big is Bryce Young? How heavy is Bryce Young specifically? He's the projected first overall, or at least a top 3 NFL draft pick in this class. And if he comes in, 5'8", 180 pounds, people are going to lose their shit. But if he comes in at his listed weight, even 5'10", 195 pounds, 194 pounds, I think he's probably going to be just fine. There's rumors that he's close to 200. He's not going to throw at the NFL Combine, which is probably on purpose, because he's probably just been bulking up and clearing that weight threshold for teams. Then maybe he'll slim down a little bit for his pro day later on in March. So the rest of the top quarterbacks are throwing, though, which is definitely interesting, because in years past, we haven't seen many of the top quarterbacks throw, because they're not throwing to receivers that they know. It's not an environment that they're comfortable with. They'd much rather throw at their pro day, get these scripted throws like we saw from, Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson in recent years. So CJ Stroud's throwing, Anthony Richardson's throwing, Will Levis is throwing. I mean, I don't know if Hendon Hooker's throwing because of the injury, but he might be as well. So definitely something to keep in mind. CJ Stroud, the next quarterback projected off the board. Size and throwing is not a concern for him, because he's going to be big and he's going to throw at the combine. For me, I'm interested to see if he does any athletic testing, because the big question we have about CJ Stroud is how mobile is he and how good of an athlete is he? So if he goes out there and he runs a 4.7 or something and jumps pretty well and, has good agilities, then that would definitely be big for his draft stock, because I think teams are, looking at that Georgia game and saying, hey, CJ Stroud can do this, but they want to also put the numbers to, the game and be like, hey, he's actually a good enough athlete. He's, comparable to X quarterback as an athlete. If he can test pretty well, I think that would be huge for CJ Stroud. Anthony Richardson is expected to do everything. And we typically do not see quarterbacks like Anthony Richardson test, because they're worried that NFL teams won't let them be quarterbacks, right? They'll want them to switch to tight end or wide receiver. That's why Lamar Jackson didn't test, so on and so forth. We know that Anthony Richardson's a freakish athlete, so we don't want to double count anything, right? If Anthony Richardson goes out there and he runs 4.48, he jumps 40 inches, and he's 6'4", 240 pounds, we kind of already knew that. So I don't really want to double count anything with Anthony Richardson, but the big thing to watch is how NFL teams are talking about him, because if this solidifies him as a top 10 NFL draft pick, he looks good during the throwing drills and he tests out the gym, then that's definitely huge for Anthony Richardson. We've heard from guys like Daniel Jeremiah that some teams view Anthony Richardson as high as QB2 in this upcoming draft. And reportedly, Carolina is very high on him. If he goes in the top 10 picks and you have, let's say, the 103 or the 104, that pick just got a lot more valuable, because suddenly we have a quarterback prospect who can be, the next Justin Fields, the next Kyler Murray, or whatever, name your mobile quarterback that you think he's somewhat alike. Because if he goes that high, and you even if you don't want him, that makes your pick more valuable, because you can move off of it. If you intended, let's say in a super flex draft, you hold the 104 and you intended to just say, hey, set it and forget it, I'm going to take Jackson Smith and Jigba, and Anthony Richardson blows up the combine, you can trade down to 106 or 105, get something on top of it because it's a quarterback in Anthony Richardson, and still get Jackson Smith and Jigba with your next pick. So definitely huge for Anthony Richardson to see where his draft capital is at and how he tests. Will Levis probably going to be outshined athletically by Anthony Richardson, but if he tests, he should be a good athlete as well. Definitely be interested to see him throw and test if he does everything well. I'm not really overly interested in the rest of the quarterback class until I see draft capital. I'd rather just wait until after the NFL draft to talk about these guys, but keep an eye on buzz for Hendon Hooker, because he was on track to potentially be a top 50 pick before the ACL injury that he suffered in November. And then Tanner McKee from Stanford, is I've seen from mocks where he's been mocked in the second round, third round. So those two guys specifically, I would keep an eye on. But for the most part, I would just wait until after the NFL draft to worry about the rest of the quarterbacks in this draft class. So let's move on to the wide receiver position. And we got some big news on the consensus wide receiver one, I would say, among the community, in Jackson Smith and Jigba from Ohio State. apparently, according to our buddy Cody Carpentier from Roto Underworld, he's been talking to people at the combine and they don't expect Jackson Smith and Jigba to run the 40. And I don't exactly know what that means because either A, he's not running because he doesn't think he's going to run fast, which is a concern for some people, or B, he's not running because he's still not 100% from the hamstring injury that kept him out most of this season, if not all of this season. So if he does other drills and not the 40, it likely means that he's slow. And that's why he's not running, and he's going to run at his pro day. And typically we see pro day numbers inflated a little bit. So if he doesn't, I think for JSN, the smart thing would be to do nothing. You don't test at all, and then you go to your pro day, and then people aren't wondering, did you not test because you actually are slow? Not, are you not healthy? I hope he's just not healthy, and that's why he's not testing, because I still like JSN, even though he's not my wide receiver one. He is my wide receiver two. So my wide receiver one, Jordan Addison, definitely has some size question marks as well. He's listed at 6 foot, 175 pounds. Right now, the only sub 180 pound top 20 dynasty wide receiver, according to Keep Trade Cut, is Devontae Smith, which is the main comparison that Jordan Addison draws for me. So if he can clear 180 pounds, and I think he can, he will probably be the wide receiver one for most NFL teams, in my opinion. I think if he comes in 184 pounds or something like that, I think most of the dynasty community will be less concerned about his size as well. So hopefully Jordan Addison can come in, clear 180 pounds. He's not 171 pounds or something like that at the official weigh-in, because that will definitely be a concern for NFL teams, might affect his draft capital, and it will definitely be a concern for fantasy players as well. So I expect him to do everything testing-wise. I expect him to run well, probably run 4.4s or faster, jump in the 60th percentile, agilities in the 60th plus percentile as well. So for me, really all I care about for Jordan Addison is the weigh-in, because I know everything that I need to see when I watched him at Pitt and I watched him at USC. So I really don't have any other concerns aside from how much does he actually weigh. Quentin Johnston, the NFL scouting combine was made for a dude like this. QJ has inconsistent tape, but he has great flashes. So for him, he can solidify himself as a bona fide first rounder, potentially the first wide receiver off the board, by doing some crazy shit in Indianapolis. If he goes out there and is 6'4", 210 pounds, 215 pounds, and runs 4.41 and jumps 43 inches or something like that, he's definitely going to be a big time riser in the eyes of NFL teams. But here's the tough thing about Quentin Johnston. In my eyes, he has to test like a freak, because otherwise teams aren't going to be excited about him. And former TCU wide receiver Jalen Reagor is a perfect example. He still went in the first round, but I think a lot of people were expecting Jalen Reagor when he came out to be a lot freakier than he was, to be, 4.3 speed type of guy. And then he ran in the mid 4.4s and everybody was disappointed. So hopefully Quentin Johnston comes out and blows up the combine, because that's going to make your picks more valuable, even if you don't like Quentin Johnston, if you're a little bit skeptical like I am. The rest of the position at wide receiver is all up in the air. It's small or it's unathletic, right? We have guys like Zay Flowers, Josh Downs, Jalen Hyatt, Tank Dell. With these guys, we want to see them clear that 5'10", 180 pound threshold, especially with Hyatt and Zay Flowers and Tank Dell. We already kind of know how big Tank Dell is, so he's not going to clear that. Jalen Hyatt, I also want to see him clear the weight threshold, because I don't want him to be like 175 pounds either. I think they'll all test well. Of course, I have no doubt in my mind that Jalen Hyatt's going to run in the 4.3s. I have no doubt in my mind that Josh Downs and Zay Flowers are going to have some of the best agilities of any players in Indianapolis. And same goes for Tank Dell. So mainly for these guys, it's just size. It's maintaining that highly thought of athleticism with most of these guys. Not a ton else that they can do, and they can show me that I didn't already see on film with them. So Kayshon Boutte, I need to hear nothing that suggests that Kayshon Boutte has either got bad medicals or a head case attitude-wise, because those are his biggest two concerns right now. And of course, I can't sit down with the guy. I have no idea what he actually is or isn't. So I don't want to hear anything like, Kayshon Boutte is going to slide to day 3 because of attitude concerns or whatever the case is. So hopefully Kayshon Boutte interviews well and he sorts some things out and teams actually like him, because he is definitely the type of guy that could rise from the combine, because he's big, he's fast, he's athletic. If he goes out there, comes in at 6'1", 205 pounds, 210 pounds, like a Jamar Chase type of size threshold, jumps, 40 inches, runs in the 4.4s, he could definitely be a big time riser. The thing with him is he a head case? Is it a bad attitude? Whatever the case is. And then we also have some other guys like Cedric Tillman, for example, who we don't necessarily know how athletic he is. The rest of the wide receiver class is pretty meh, in my opinion. So let's see if anybody else emerges. Maybe Rashee Rice tests well. Maybe Michael Wilson from Stanford tests well. Maybe Tyler Scott, who's supposedly going to run as fast as John Ross and challenge that 4.22 that he ran. Maybe he rises up boards because he runs a 4.24 or something like that, and teams get really excited about the speed. We saw Tyquan Thornton go in the second round, basically the only reason being that he ran in the 4.2s. And I think Tyler Scott could definitely be another guy that does that. So the rest of the wide receiver class definitely has to work itself out, but we can move on to the tight end position. It's one that has received quite a bit of buzz in recent days as the cycle kind of picks up. People are starting to learn about some of these guys. We really got some exciting guys at this position. Normally, we don't get excited about tight ends, especially the last couple of years. We haven't really had many good tight end prospects outside of like Kyle Pitts and Pat Freiermuth the past couple of years. But Michael Mayer, in my opinion, to me, one of the safest prospects in the entire draft. He's got everything that you could ask for on paper, on tape. Some people question how good of an athlete he is. And it's also worth noting that tight end and running back are typically the position that athleticism matters the most for, carries the most water. And I've been on record saying that I think Michael Mayer is going to test like Mark Andrews. He's going to come in, 6'4" to 6'6" is what he's listed at, 240 to 265 pounds. We got a wide range on his weight here. So the size will be interesting first and foremost, but also, Mark Andrews ran in the mid 4.6s. If Michael Mayer comes in, runs 4.64 at 6'4", 250 pounds, I think that'd be a great time for him. I think Michael Mayer will actually test better than Mark Andrews did in agility drills because Mark Andrews did not test well with subpar agilities. So definitely interesting to see what Michael Mayer does. The other guy that's in contention for tight end 1 is Dalton Kincaid from Utah. A lot of people are getting higher and higher on this dude. He should test well, but unfortunately, we may have to wait until his pro day because he suffered a back injury in his last game versus Colorado. So I've heard Daniel Jeremiah comp him to Travis Kelce, to Zach Ertz from a movement standpoint. So I'd be interested to see, all Kincaid has to do is test like a great pass catching tight end potentially at his pro day, and he'll be a first round lock. So we're not going to get testing from Dalton Kincaid, but hopefully he comes in at a good size and we hear more buzz about him potentially being a first round pick. Then this should be a guy that people are willing to take at the 1-2 turn in tight end premium leagues or in the mid-second round of regular rookie drafts. So those two guys are currently my tight end 1 and my tight end 2 because they have solid production to match the potential good athleticism. And the rest of the class is strong at tight end as well, starting with Luke Musgrave from Oregon State and Darnell Washington from Georgia. Two guys that are expected to be freakish size speed combinations. And this is where these dudes can make themselves a lot of money because a lot of people expect Luke Musgrave to potentially run in the 4.4s. They expect Darnell Washington to come in at like 6'7", 275 pounds and run like in the 4.5s or something like that. So for me, as good as their athleticism and draft capital are, and as important as that is for the tight end position, the lack of production is definitely concerning, specifically with Luke Musgrave because in Darnell Washington's case, he was competing for targets with Brock Bowers, with Arik Gilbert, with, George Pickens on the outside, and Georgia's a very run-heavy offense, whereas Luke Musgrave didn't really produce very much at Oregon State despite having a lack of target competition. So this position is heralded as one of the best and deepest in the entire draft. So we could definitely see some guys emerge, right? Sam Laporta from Iowa, Tucker Kraft from South Dakota State, Josh Weil from Cincinnati, Luke Schoonmaker from Michigan, Cameron Latou from Alabama. There's a bunch of guys that could definitely make themselves a lot of money. And these guys could be good targets for those of you guys that are, in the midst of a productive struggle. You have a ton of 3rd and 4th round rookie picks because it sounds like 8 to 10 of these tight ends are probably going to go in the top 3 rounds of the actual NFL draft. So as boring as the tight end position can be sometimes, definitely keep an eye on the tight end position in this draft class. So that is the end of the video. If you guys enjoyed, like I said, leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel if you are new around here. Make sure to check out our new show sponsor. We talked about it in yesterday's video, Aura. Check it out. Link it down below in the description. You can get a 14-day free trial for the best all-in-one cybersecurity app that you will ever need, from a VPN to parental controls. All that stuff is included if you check out the link down below in the description. We want to thank them for sponsoring the channel, and you guys can support us by supporting them. So definitely check that out. But with that being said, peace out, and we'll talk to you.
Wire me the money.